Hey, and welcome. Miss Kira Speaks. Before we get started, I ask that you watch the videos till the end, subscribe, and turn on your notifications. I know your girl's been gone for a minute, but I am back here to bring you another one of my watch lists. As you know, my watch list consists of TV, streaming, and film, old, new, and in between. Some I've watched before, and some I'm currently watching. I will give you my mostly spoiler-free breakdown of 2 or more shows with some additional recommendations. I just want to say welcome to any newcomers. I hope that you'll subscribe, share with a friend, and return for future content. To my subscribers, thank you so much for your continued support. I appreciate you. Tonight, we're here to talk some Black stories. First up is the immortal life of Henrietta Lacks. This drama history is on HBOMAX. It was released in 2017, is rated TVMA, and has a runtime of 1 hour and 33 minutes. Henrietta Lacks was an African-American woman whose cells were used to create the first immortal human cells line. Told through the eyes of Lacks's daughter, Deborah, and a journalist, the film chronicles Deborah's search to learn about the mother she never knew, and how the unauthorized harvesting of Lack's cancerous cells in 1951 led to medical breakthroughs. It's a story of medical arrogance and triumph, race, poverty, and a deep friendship between the unlikeliest of people. Skloot, the journalist, spent over 10 years researching the history behind the HeLa cells and trying to bring Henrietta's story to the light. It stars Oprah Winfrey and Rose Byrne, and this movie, it was a lot. I can't even say be careful because the doctors did this without Henrietta's consent or knowledge. It's just crazy. Took what they needed and left her to die. No help to the family. Instead, they tried to use them. John Hopkins did them dirty. Let's hope this ring light cooperates for the rest of the video. Now, where was I at in my notes? Yes, yet they used these cells, the HeLa cells, in tens of thousands of research studies, developing drugs for polio, leukemia, HPV, influenza, and Parkinson's disease. Skloot finished the book on Lacks that received several awards and started the Henrietta Lacks Foundation. I recommend you give this one a watch. The more you know. Like, for instance, what they did is still completely legal. Your consent isn't required if they get the tissue as a result of you having surgery. Something to think about as we move on. Next up is Katrina Babies, also on HBOMAX. It's a documentary and it was released this year. It's rated TVMA and the runtime is 1 hour and 21 minutes. 16 years after Hurricane Katrina devastated New Orleans, an entire generation still grapples with the lifelong impact of having their childhood redefined by tragedy. New Orleans' first-time filmmaker Edward Buckles Jr. was only 13 years old during Katrina and its initial aftermath. He spent 7 years documenting the story of his peers who survived the storm as children, using his community's tradition of storytelling to open a door for healing and to capture the strength and the spirits of the city. Katrina Babies details the close-knit families and the vibrant communities of New Orleans whose lives were uprooted by the disaster in 2005. These American children who were airlifted out of the rising waters, evacuated from their homes to refugee-like centers or placed in makeshift temporary living situations, have been neglected. As families were tasked with reintegrating into new communities, having experienced loss, displacement, and lack of support from government officials, the children are left to process their trauma in a wounded, fractured city. This one put me through a lot of emotions. I love getting the firsthand story from the children who are now grown. They said no one ever asked him until this man picked up his camera and got to work. He said he didn't even know what it was going to be. He just knew that he had to document it. It deals with everything from how the country handled the tragedy and George Bush, you know the rest, on down to gentrification. You know I love a good documentary, and I recommend you give this one a watch. Last up is Aftershock, released this July on Hulu. It's a documentary rated TVMA and has a runtime of 1 hour and 27 minutes. A disproportionate amount of Black women are failed every year by the U.S. maternal health system. Shamani Gibson and Amber Rose Isaac died due to childbirth complications. Now, the two bereaved families galvanize activists, birth workers, and physicians to reckon with the most pressing America crisis today. Distributed by Onyx Collective and released in January at Sundance. This documentary was produced by Tanya Lewis Lee, who some know as Spike Lee's wife, but more importantly, a director and a writer. EP on the Netflix series She's Gotta Have It, and producer on the Netflix film Monster, which premiered at Sundance also in 2018. Lee is also known to explore the impact of social justice issues and civil rights. Now, this topic in particular hit close to home. My eldest was born via emergency C-section for what I was told was medical reasons. My second was a scheduled turned emergency C-section, definitely for medical reasons. I had a number of factors in that pregnancy that made me high risk, and they kept mentioning hysterectomy, and the whole situation, it was quite scary. I was at a clinic because I found myself unemployed at that time, and I had to really fight to get out of there to go someplace and get proper medical care. And even with all I went through, luckily I walked away from all 3 pregnancies, all 3 C-sections alive. This documentary scared the crap out of me. As Black women, we really have to advocate for ourselves and speak up and keep talking and keep talking and keep talking. And what was worse is these women did that and they still weren't listened to, and they lost their lives behind that. It's frustrating and aggravating, to say the least. Don't be afraid to speak up. And like I said, keep speaking up and keep speaking up and keep speaking up. They expect us to tolerate more pain, and it just isn't fair. This documentary even gets into the history of midwives, OBs, GYNs. It talks about the racism, and it talks about that high pain tolerance that Black women in particular are supposed to have. It really gets into a lot, and I really am trying to not go off on a tangent with this one, because like I said, it really hits close to home with me. I've had other situations that weren't in birth where the doctor just didn't listen, and I'm not a person, I will go to work, duct tape my leg back on, and keep thugging it out, which is not the right thing to do, Black women. But when it comes to my kids, I'm a little more on that. So I'm not one that complains. So when I come to you and I say X, Y, and Z, know that like this is it. But I had doctors in the hospital, my primary care doctor, that I was really sick and they weren't listening. And luckily for me, my sister-in-law is a PA who just kept telling me, speak up and keep speaking up and keep speaking up. And, I went from one thing to another in a particular situation that I won't get into. And I finally did get the care that I needed and survived it all. But it's just, like I said, I was trying to not get off on a tangent when we're talking about our Black stories here. There's a lot to get from this documentary, and I was a little hopeful with the achievements that the family seemed to be making. And then I remember that we're the same country that just overturned Roe v. Wade. In any case, this is an important documentary that you should give a watch. An honorable mention goes to Blood on Black Wall Street, The Legacy of the Tulsa Massacre. It's playing now on Peacock. If you are looking for more Black stories, check out Miss Evers' Boys, rated PG and released in 1997. When nurse Eunice Evers is chosen to facilitate a program intended to curb syphilis rates among African Americans in rural Alabama, she is gratified to be able to serve her community. Over time, however, the study becomes twisted into a shocking human experiment in which patients are systematically denied much-needed medicine. Decades after the fact, Evers is called before the Senate committee to testify to what really happened during the infamous Tuskegee study. You can watch it now on HBO Max. Also check out Women of the Movement. Now, this was on ABC, I think, and Hulu as a limited series, but when I last checked right before I went to record this video, it wasn't there. So you may have to pay a little bit of money to go find it somewhere on like Apple TV or another one of the streaming platforms. But this Black story, that's a scripted drama series, is definitely worth a watch. What Black stories have you guys watched that you enjoyed or learned something from? Drop that in the comments and let me know. So my plan for the month of February, that's right, I said February when we haven't even finished this year. I have a lot of stuff going on up in here, so I'm always brainstorming, writing down ideas, jotting it all down. So for my watch list for that month, it will be focused on Black stories, movies, TV. I know you haven't seen me on here, in a while. I think I took a week off just trying to get everything together. And I hate to get on here and give you guys a story every time I get on, which is why I kind of tried to stray away from that in the beginning. But just know that if you don't see me, keep your notifications on. I will be here. I will be back. I'm not going to give it up. I don't know what my schedule is going to be. Life throws stuff at me and you just got to keep it moving, but I will be here, I promise. Also, get down in the comments and let me know if you've seen these and what you thought. And you can also let me know about my recommendations or just let me know that you stopped by. In the meantime, if you were looking for more, please check out some of my other watch lists or content. Don't forget to keep those notifications on, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.